Former President Donald Trump is no stranger to making outlandish statements, but his recent interview with Fox News host Laura Ingraham took his penchant for stretching the truth to new heights. As the 2024 presidential race heats up, Trump's inflammatory rhetoric has reached an alarming level, with bizarre claims about hurricanes, FEMA, women, and his political opponents. In a stunning display of falsehoods and conspiracies, even Ingraham, a staunch Trump ally, found herself fact-checking the former president live on air. During the interview, Trump seemed to unravel, making bold yet baffling statements, including his assertion that no one could have predicted the recent devastating hurricanes, his bizarre interaction with Elon Musk over disaster relief, and his dubious claim that women love him despite polls suggesting otherwise. Perhaps most shockingly, Trump openly entertained the idea of being a fascist dictator, saying the quiet part out loud when pressed about his authoritarian tendencies. This interview is a masterclass in misinformation and delusion, revealing a man disconnected from reality, bent on revenge, and determined to reshape the United States in his image. As we delve into the bizarre claims Trump made during this interview, it becomes clear that his relationship with the truth remains as tenuous as ever. Here's a breakdown of Trump's most confounding moments from the Fox interview. Hurricane claims, nobody could have predicted it. Trump kicked off the interview by discussing the recent hurricanes that have devastated parts of the United States. At one point, Laura Ingraham asked him how he would have handled the response to Hurricane Helen differently. Instead of providing a coherent plan, Trump launched into a word salad of nonsensical statements about how no one could have predicted such storms and how FEMA had failed to deploy the necessary personnel. I was in North Carolina yesterday, Trump rambled, and George is different. You have a good governor there, but North Carolina is a disaster. They don't have the people. There's no people around to help. Trump's statement was not only false, but also absurd. Hurricanes are a well-documented and frequently occurring phenomenon in the United States, particularly in the Southeast. In fact, meteorologists had been tracking Hurricane Helen well in advance, and FEMA was already on the ground before the storm hit. Trump's attempt to politicize the disaster by blaming North Carolina's Democratic leadership for the lack of response was immediately debunked by local news outlets, including the Charlotte Observer, which criticized him for turning a tragedy into a political football. Trump's statements about hurricanes reveal a deeper truth about his leadership style. It's never about taking responsibility or offering solutions, but rather about blaming others and spinning the narrative to suit his own needs. FEMA and Elon Musk, a tale of miscommunication. One of the more surreal moments of the interview came when Trump began discussing FEMA's response to the hurricanes and his alleged interaction with tech mogul Elon Musk. According to Trump, FEMA was dragging its feet on providing helicopters and essential supplies to affected areas, but he personally called Musk to intervene. Elon came through, Trump boasted. He had Starlinks. It's incredible for communication. I called him, and he had things being delivered literally by the time I got off the phone. But then FEMA tried to confiscate it. What Trump failed to mention, or perhaps didn't realize, is that FEMA had already been coordinating with local authorities, and Starlink's satellite internet services were already being deployed to affected areas before Trump's supposed call to Musk. Moreover, Trump's bizarre claim that FEMA tried to confiscate relief supplies is baseless. There is no evidence to suggest that FEMA attempted to block any relief efforts. This entire episode highlights Trump's need to insert himself into every situation as a savior, even when his involvement is neither necessary nor wanted. In reality, FEMA had been working closely with state and local governments, as well as private companies like Musk's SpaceX, to ensure a coordinated response to the hurricanes. Trump's version of events is, at best, a gross exaggeration, and at worst, a deliberate lie designed to paint him as the hero of the story. I will be a protector of women. Creepy or convincing? In perhaps one of the strangest pivots of the interview, Trump declared himself to be the protector of women. I want to protect women, he said. I'm going to protect women, and I'm going to protect men, and I'm going to protect children. That's my obligation, to do it with the military and with law enforcement. While Trump might believe that this statement resonates with women voters, the reality is far more complex. Trump has a long history of making derogatory remarks about women, from his infamous comments about grabbing women without their consent to his treatment of female political opponents like Hillary Clinton and Kamala Harris. Polls consistently show that Trump struggles with women voters, particularly suburban women, who played a key role in his loss to Joe Biden in 2020. Even when pressed by Ingraham about his poor polling with women, Trump dismissed the data as fake, insisting that women actually support him. I think I do very well with the women, he said, without offering any evidence to back up his claim. This delusion extends to Trump's broader approach to polling. Throughout the interview, he repeatedly claimed that all unfavorable polls are fake or rigged, even though his own campaign's internal polling reportedly shows him struggling with key demographics. Trump's inability to acknowledge the reality of his unpopularity with women voters underscores his larger problem. He simply cannot accept any facts that don't align with his preferred narrative. Dictatorship denial? Not exactly. One of the most alarming moments of the interview occurred when Laura Ingraham broached the subject of Trump's authoritarian tendencies. A lot of people are worried that you're going to try to be a dictator and seek retribution on people. Ingraham said, "What do you say to that?" Rather than outright deny the accusation, Trump gave a chilling response. I will be a protector. He then pivoted to talking about law enforcement and the military, but his failure to categorically reject the idea of being a dictator left many viewers unsettled. Trump's flirtation with authoritarianism has long been a concern among political analysts and critics. Throughout his presidency, he repeatedly undermined democratic institutions, attacked the free press, and sought to punish his political enemies. His infamous attempts to overturn the 2020 election by pressuring state officials and inciting a mob to storm the Capitol on January 6, 2021, are just the most egregious examples of his authoritarian leanings. By failing to directly answer Ingraham's question, Trump left the door open to further speculation about his intentions if he were to return to the White House. His rhetoric about protecting Americans through the use of military and law enforcement only fuels concerns that a second Trump presidency would be marked by even greater abuses of power. Trump's FEMA fantasies. Trump's obsession with FEMA continued throughout the interview, as he returned to the subject of disaster relief and his supposed involvement in the response. At one point, he claimed that FEMA had confiscated supplies that Elon Musk had sent to hurricane-ravaged areas, only to relent after huge publicity brought attention to the issue. This claim is not only false, but nonsensical. FEMA has strict protocols in place for disaster relief, and there is no evidence to support Trump's assertion that they blocked or confiscated any supplies. In fact, FEMA officials have been praised by both Democratic and Republican leaders in the affected states for their swift and coordinated response to the hurricanes. But for Trump, the truth is irrelevant. What matters is the narrative he creates, a narrative in which he is always the hero, fighting against the corrupt and incompetent forces of government to deliver aid to the people. This fantasy version of events serves to bolster Trump's self-image as a man of action, even though the reality tells a very different story. False polling. I do well with women. As the interview neared its conclusion, Trump circled back to his favorite topic, polling. When Ingraham asked him about his poor numbers with women voters, Trump brushed off the data as fake news, insisting that he actually does quite well with women. He pointed to his tough stance on law and order as the reason why women support him, though he provided no evidence to back up this claim. In reality, Trump's support among women, particularly suburban women, has been in free fall since 2016. Exit polls from the 2020 election showed that Biden won 57% of women voters compared to Trump's 42%, and recent surveys suggest that trend is unlikely to reverse in 2024. Trump's continued denial of these facts only serves to further alienate the very voters he needs to win back if he hopes to return to the White House. Donald Trump's interview with Laura Ingraham was a spectacle of falsehoods, delusions, and outright lies. From his bizarre claims about hurricanes and FEMA to his denial of poor polling numbers, Trump demonstrated once again that he is incapable of engaging with reality. His refusal to reject authoritarianism, combined with his insistence that he is a protector of women despite overwhelming evidence to the contrary, paints a troubling picture of a man who is unfit for office. As Trump prepares for another run at the presidency, his interview with Ingraham offers a glimpse into the kind of leadership he would bring to a second term, one marked by lies, conspiracy theories, and a dangerous disregard for democratic norms. For those who value truth and accountability, Trump's performance was a stark reminder of the stakes in the 2024 election. Whether or not his base continues to buy into his narrative, the rest of the country and the world should be on high alert.